And with that sound, welcome back again. This is Radio Free Canada. I'm Darin Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet. This is Monday, September 10th, 2012.
You know it. You got it. We're part of the conscious revolution that's going on. This is talk radio that's outside of the box, and we are demanding democracy. There's a reason why, and we're going to be explaining that over the next couple of hours as we attend to the fastest 2 hours in talk radio.
Yes, we're here to talk about the endless peace that's been going on for the past 11 years. The war on the environment, the people, the financial system, the war on drugs, all these phony wars that aren't really happening.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about people's reactions from that from around the world.
But as usual, the legal portion of the program, because we have to do these things officially, everything that we're about to do is protected under Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
And we're bringing you media that is protected under international fair use copyright law.
And, of course, we're going to enjoy all of those rights and freedoms as long as Stephen Harper doesn't get his way. Of course, everything that you're about to hear is our opinion and only our opinion. So if you hear something here that challenges you, challenge us right back again, but do not jump off of a bridge just because we're talking about something that makes you feel a little squeamish.
Yes, we don't want to scare you. We just want to wake you up.
But for all of those people who are awake out there, we are here proclaiming the truth that freedom is ours. We just have to claim it. We have to stand right in the streets and demand that the corruption come to an end, that democracy start existing in a real form, and that me and you are taken care of instead of constantly going broke for banks that make money out of nowhere. So our final legal note is, if you're an in-the-box thinker,
if you think the war on terror is making us safer,
if you think banks should continue not paying taxes,
if you think McDonald's is a restaurant,
or you think CHBC is the news, then stop listening now. Please don't get on our Facebook wall and tell us that we suck. We realize that you think we suck. This is a revolution of consciousness, and people are waking up everywhere. We're here to support that. We're here to make sure the news gets out about unions being smashed, about GMOs going on your table. We're here to bring you news on why we don't need a war. And over the next 2 hours, we're going to bring you clips from around the internet that the news services in town apparently don't have. So the first thing we're going to say is, we want to raise money for news editors in the Okanagan so they can get the internet like we have.
Yes, that might help them out a bit. Yeah, I don't even have the internet at home. I have to go out and find wireless signals so I can access the internet, and yet I still do a better job reporting the news than they do.
How can that be, that we're doing a better job than major news? Maybe because we don't care about the next car accident. We sure as heck know Justin Bieber is not the news, and it's sports. It's not news. Let's bring us a quick clip right here to make you smile, because the revolution, we are winning. Activism is winning. Check this out.
I'm not by nature a nervous person. I'm not brave, I'm just not nervous, because luckily I've learned to ignore everything politicians have to say, which is a good thing, because in this country, every time you turn around, another Harper cabinet minister is in a full-blown panic. It's like they believe their number one job description is to freak Canadians out. It's got to the point now where if Vic Taves or Jason Kenney ran into my house in the middle of the night screaming fire, I'm not moving until I smell smoke. And it doesn't matter what the issue, the message is always the same. Be afraid, Canada. Be very afraid, and build more prisons. And the Prime Minister, the only time he seems happy is when he's hanging out with Nickelback, or he's leaning forward, reminding us once again that we live in perilous times. Danger is lapping at our shores. Winston Churchill was more upbeat at the height of the Blitz. Meanwhile, statistically, we are living in the safest time in our entire history. Crime is down. You would think the government might remind us of that on occasion. I mean, it's a good news story. Crime is down, but no, instead they say, well, crime is down, but unreported crime is up. Who does that? That's like, instead of telling your kid there's no monster under the bed, saying, well, there's no reports of monsters under your bed, but unreported monsters? Who's to say? Why would a government want people to be afraid? Because people who are afraid, they do what they're told, they pass over their lunch money, they keep their mouths shut. Don't fall for it. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. and the people who benefit from spreading it.
And that's the way we start off the show right here at Radio Free Canada, because we know there's no reason to be terribly afraid about everything. Vigilance is not being afraid.
No, but ignorance is strength.
Yes, it is. So we're going to smash the paradigm of major media. We're going to play vinyl because vinyl just sounds better. We're going to bring you relevant news stories, not about Justin Bieber. And we're going to do it with a smile on our face. Why? Because the revolution is winning. Activism is winning around the world right now.
Now, we're less than a week away from our Demand Democracy rally, which is occurring at Kerry Park on September 15th at 12 noon.
So you've got time right now to get your opinion in on what it means to demand democracy. There is a fact out there. You vote for somebody and then they lie to you and do whatever they want. This is the way that things go. And the way it's gone is 1 in 5 Canadian children is going hungry right now. We know that that's got to come to an end. There's a fact of the matter is we've got a huge country. We're capable of growing food upon food upon food. We're capable of creating jobs. The government and major banks refuse to do that, and that's what we mean about democracy.
Now, I heard a little spiel yesterday about what we're living in these days. It's called a post-fact society.
A post-fact society.
Yes, because facts don't matter. Because don't forget that at the Republican National Congress, they said, we're not going to allow our campaign to be dictated by fact checkers.
And just like the Harper government, where the scientists actually have to protest and say evidence has died, the death of evidence protest, something you should research on the internet. And then he turns around and says, well, we're going to go through with an oil pipeline because the science points us in that way. Which way is it? Is the world 4,000 years old, or are you going to rely on science, Mr. Prime Minister?
Well, don't forget, war is peace.
Okay, we've got an action-packed show here today, and we are going to talk about the elements of opacity in government. We're going to talk about why you need democracy, and the fact that if we voted for anything relevant, you wouldn't be voting for a war with Iran.
I'm sure not.
Okay, the evidence is there. There's a whole bunch of lies going around. Canada has expelled diplomatic ministers from Iran. They've closed the Iranian embassy, a prelude for war. We don't need it. It's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us lives. And we need to start standing up against this. But where is major media? Pounding the war drums.
Pounding the war drums, that's right. They want to get us into that war because, that'll take people's minds off the economy.
Yes, the economy. Remember, you can replace the words economy with bank profits in any major media newscast. That's the way that the economy works. If banks are making money, they think that it's a good thing.
One thing you have to ask yourself constantly is if we're going into a war, who's going to benefit? It's sure not going to make Canadians safer. It's sure not going to make the U.S. safer. Who's going to benefit? I think maybe the people who loan the money to the governments in order to go to war are the ones who are going to benefit.
And we're going to talk about some of those things. GMOs are on our scale here. We're also going to talk about the way that the unions got shut down repeated times across Canada. And we're going to talk about 1 in 5 children going hungry in Canada, 37,000 people dying every day, even though we could feed them and give them medicine, and how all of it is being explained to you as far too expensive. It's not too expensive to join us. This is Radio Free Canada. We're going to take our first network break and play some honest-to-goodness vinyl music. One thing we do that they're not allowed to do.
This is Radio Free Canada.
We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you stay tuned because we are winning. You're finally on the winning team. You know that, right?
do it. You play the guitar on the MTV. That ain't working, that's the way you do it. Money for nothing and your chicks for free. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Let me tell you, damn guys ain't dumb. Maybe get a blister on your little finger. Maybe get a blister on your thumb. We got to install microwave ovens, custom kitchen deliveries. We got to move these refrigerators. We got to move these color TVs. To the little faggot with the earring and the makeup. Yeah, buddy, that's his own hair. The little faggot got his own jet airplane. The little faggot, he's a millionaire. We got to install microwave ovens.
It's so appropriate. That's a song that the Harper conservatives got so bent out of shape about. It's an accurate portrayal of what society was in the 80s and 90s. They were talking about faggots.
They were talking about Boy George.
Yeah, there's a bunch of, there's Dire Straits, okay, and they're at the top of their form right at that time. Mark Knopfler is sitting in, like, you know, a great big appliance repair store. There's some delivery guys there, and they're looking at a video of Boy George. That's what they said. Of course, the truth and reality is something the Harper government doesn't really want to have happen around here.
Don't forget, we live in a post-truth society.
Remember, being willfully ignorant is what you are in an information society. The internet is there, and we are challenging you to challenge us. Make sure that you inform us. Keep us informed, like people like Lynn Nichols, Ralph Wistera, Bill Nietzsche on the internet, Michael Alk. They're on Radio Free Canada on our board, and they're bringing us all of these awesome links, okay? I don't want to miss anybody, too. I often feel like, you know, it's sort of like that speech. I don't want to miss it. Troy Lessard brought us some clips over the weekend and some links over the weekend. Make sure you catch up on his stream on there. Bill brought us a whole bunch of stuff that really shakes you up when you start reading about it. And, of course, there's some graphics done by one of the guys that works around here. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, just a few, yeah.
But the one thing we are talking about a lot of is if you voted for what was really going on in your supposed democracy, would you vote for war? Okay? Now, if you're a conservative and of a conservative mindset, or you go along with the Harper conservatives, you think weird things like Muslims are our enemies. Okay? So let's start off, and we are going to start talking about why we need to get our cornflakes back, why we need to start voting and get opacity done away with in major media.
Let's have a listen to our dear leader.
Yeah.
Prime Minister, thank you for doing this. In an interview in the last couple of weeks when you were talking about Iran, you said that in your view, they want nuclear weapons and they would not be shy about using them.
That is my belief.
If they had them.
Yes.
I found that interesting because one of the last times we talked, you suggested that one of the concerns you had about the past, about decisions you've made in the past, was that you took perhaps too much belief in intelligence reports that you got. And we're talking specifically about Iraq. Yeah. But on this one, to say what you've said, are you confident in the intelligence you've seen to be convinced that A, they want nuclear weapons, and B, they would use them if they had them?
Well, Peter, on the first question, I think the evidence is just growing overwhelming. This is not, as it was the case of Iraq, merely now the opinion of allies. I think the International Atomic Energy Commission, if you look at its work, there really is no secret that Iran's nuclear program has as one of its purposes the development of nuclear weapons, and that I think is just beyond dispute at this point. I think the only dispute is how far advanced it is and how far off it will be until they actually develop those weapons and develop the capability of delivering those weapons.
They're lying when they say they're not.
I think there is absolutely no doubt they are lying.
The gentleman is recognized. The NDAA authorizes war against Iran. It calls for a new policy, military action, which puts U.S. aircraft and munitions into position for air and sea-based missions, and the bolstering of U.S. capabilities to launch a sustained sea and air campaign against a range of Iranian nuclear and military targets. It authorizes war under the pretext that Iran is threatening to launch a nuclear attack even though Iran does not have nuclear weapons, does not have nuclear weapons capability, and is not building a bomb. Beyond the obvious political and military questions here, there is a profound spiritual question. What is happening to the spirit of America that we can embrace war or waging war so casually? What happens to our souls when we authorize an attack on a nuclear facility in another country? What happens to the souls of those who perish when released from such an attack? The Golden Rule states, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." It does not say, "Do unto others before they do unto you."
I think the truth of the matter, Peter, is that, well, there's, I think a growing belief of a number of governments that my assessment is essentially correct. I think there's still a big uncertainty about what exactly to do. Trade sanctions are something that, just about everybody agrees on at some level, and everybody is doing at some level. But beyond that, these are not easy questions for the world. I've raised the alarms. I think I've raised the alarm as much as I can. But obviously, I don't advocate particular actions publicly. I work with our allies to see if we can get consensus on actions.
I want to move the topic to healthcare.
Oh, that's cut off there. So we have this amazing statement. If you go on any of the Middle Eastern news, you see they've spoken extensively about Iran not having a nuclear weapons program, and their religious leaders in Iran issued a fatwa against any nuclear development. But what do we have? well, we have John Baird.
We have John Baird and making a little announcement after he closed our embassy in Tehran.
Yeah, check it out. Okay, judge for your...
Good evening. Canada has closed its embassy in Iran, effective immediately, and declared persona non grata all remaining Iranian diplomats in Ottawa. Canada's position on this regime is very well known. Canada views the government of Iran as the most significant threat to global peace and security in the world today. The Iranian regime is providing increasing military assistance to the Assad regime. It refuses to comply with United Nations resolutions pertaining to its nuclear program. It routinely threatens the existence of the State of Israel and engages in racist, anti-Semitic rhetoric and incitement to genocide. It is among the world's worst violators of human rights, and it shelters and materially supports terrorist groups. The government of Canada is formally listing Iran today as a state sponsor of terrorism under the Justice for Victims of Terrorism Act. Under the circumstances, Canada can no longer maintain a diplomatic presence in Tehran. Diplomatic relations between Canada and Iran have been suspended. All Canadian diplomatic staff have already left Iran, and Iranian diplomats in Ottawa have been instructed to leave Canada within 5 days. And now I'd be pleased to take your questions.
Why today?
We feel that it's simply no longer safe to have representatives of the government of Canada in Tehran.
Did anything happen that sort of brought this, or warnings of anything, any occurrence at all that sort of?
No, listen, I think there's just a long list of reasons why we're coming to this decision.
Closing the embassy, so by closing the embassy, how does it make the Syrian people safer?
Listen, our concern in this regard is the safety and security of the Canadians working in Tehran, and it's just got to a point where we just are very uncomfortable putting their lives at risk. And I'll tell you, this is one of the this is a decision obviously we don't take lightly, and this is a decision that we've thought for some time, and I think it's the right thing to do.
But wait, Iran's been supporting Hezbollah for 30 years. The it's at the American embassy is 1979. We haven't had an ambassador there since 2006, I think. Is there any reason why today?
Well, I think the lack of respect for the Vienna Convention and what happened with one of our key allies, the United Kingdom.
It's Russia and China who are really protecting the Assad regime. Are you going to take the same tough line with them in your meetings with
I've already had a meeting with my Russian counterpart, and I did so in no uncertain terms. Thank you very much.
Question on Russia, if you can.
Now, okay, so if you go through it, we got to take a real quick break here, okay? But if you take a look at that, and we're asking you to challenge us because we are not the end-all and be-all, and heck, start up your own radio station, your own newspaper to question what I'm about to say. But he said, we're closing it to secure our staff, but there's been no threat to our staff.
No. What?
And
no
we're closing,
specific threat. No specific threat,
But a long list.
It's like unreported crime,
Well, that's right. Remember, there are no monsters in your closet. However, the cases of unreported monsters in your closet.
Who's to say?
At any rate, while the big media propaganda goes on CBC and Global, while they thump their chests and start talking about why we should be at war, we realize there's no reason to be at war with Iran. The war coming up is a lie, and it's a great big pile of BS, and that is my strong personal opinion. But you know what? We got to take a really quick break. We got to run that. When we come back, there's an awesome reason to smile. It's slow to get going on a Monday morning. And that was that Bread album. I can't believe it. Wow. Is this going to work? Wow. Well, it's Mother Freedom. It's right here. Remember, activism is winning.
Demand democracy.
Keep walking, keep on your toes, and don't stop talking about freedom. You get going, lots to be learning, lots to be knowing about people. You gotta reach them, sit them right down, then you gotta teach them about freedom. You gotta win it, gotta put yourself smack dab in it.
We're back again. Welcome back, Radio Free Canada. I'm Darin Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
So good to have you along. We say it quite a bit. Activism is winning, and that's a fact. GMOs have been kicked out of Europe and Asia. They're banned right now. Genetically modified organisms is what I'm talking about, and that's because of activism. And they shut down every nuclear power plant in Japan because of activism.
Because of activism, and because, nuclear power is not the be-all and end-all of clean energy.
But we do have video of Obama calling it clean coal.
Oh. Yeah, if you guys watched the DNC and you watched Obama's speech, it was full of a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Inconsistencies, obfuscation, maybe half-truths. I can't
things that require a pitchfork to remove.
The only thing I can say, he's not as big a liar as Mitt Romney.
Mittens.
We
did talk about magic underwear mittens, and we will be talking about that on Friday. We're going to do another show for you here Friday. We are looking forward to getting together with everybody once again from the Occupy movement, from Radio Free Canada, and from all of the activism within Kelowna. This Saturday, coming up at 12 noon, we're going to demand democracy. One of the reasons why? Mittens in Obama.
Mittens in Obama and Harper and Merkel and Cameron.
Man,
All
I
these
can-
people who supposedly represent democratic governments.
While we mock abjectly, we are serious about the fact that activism does work. Remember that you got whole countries suing Monsanto. Poland is doing it because of people hitting the streets. Because you vote for someone, they lie, and they get to retire and get a paycheck for the
Well,
rest
we
of their
don't really expect politicians to tell the truth. We expect them to tell it now and
Now,
then.
wait, I'm going to call you on that. I expect politicians to tell the truth, and I'm holding them accountable. That's the part that they dislike.
Yes, they do.
Yes, apparently I'm a conspiracy theorist, though.
Are you really?
Yes, yes. You
Now-
know what?
now, 11 years ago, a little event occurred that really gave rise to conspiracy theory.
And you know, if you question the official story, you're a conspiracy theorist. But this is an awesome.
This is the best synopsis of this scenario I can think of.
On the morning of September 11, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York. While in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the budget analyst office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
Failure of imagination.
because
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her. And her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about...
His head could be seen to move violently forward.
And...
They took the babies out of the incubators.
And...
Mobile production facilities.
And...
The rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit paranoid tinfoil dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, MSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission. Because ignorance, is strength.
Yes, remember that. Willfully ignorant in the day of information. That's exactly what the 9/11, the debunkers and all of this.
That was put together by Mr. James Corbett of the Corbett Report, who does a nightly broadcast from Japan.
Wow, really?
Yeah, a Canadian gentleman who is now residing in Japan and does the Corbett Report every night.
Interesting. They haven't closed any embassies in Japan, are we? Oh, no, wait. They don't have any resources we want. If you take a look at it, the lies that led to war, I talk about that extensively. CBC did a show about the lies within 9/11. 911truth.org. Okay. And then the architects. Now, there are architects who are not conspiracy theorist guys who say that this story of a free-falling two towers is BS.
Defies the laws of physics.
Yeah, absolutely. But you talk to senior citizens, and they go, well, I just don't want to talk about that.
And I'd like to know how a multi-ton, multi-story building of concrete and steel simply vaporized. How did all that stuff get pulverized into dust?
You know, I'm looking at the video. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I like facts. And what we have in the 9/11 Commission that's maintained, and then this war on terror, now the war in Iran, okay, this is all stemming from the same thing.
I've seen this movie before.
Oh, wait, I have.
I've seen this movie before. Weapons of mass destruction, smoking gun, it could be a mushroom cloud, blah, blah, blah. But we need to ring. You know what we need to do?
The G8 has today endorsed an American plan to bring democracy to the Middle East. The G8 has today endorsed an American plan to bring democracy to the Middle East.
Armed with knives, armed with chemical, biological, nuclear weapons. Fanatics, terrorists, September 11th. September 11th, killers, September 11th, terrorists. Terrorists of Al-Qaeda, terrorists, nuclear weapons, terrorists. 9/11, terror, terrorist, evil. September 11th, September 11th. The terrorists, war and danger. September 11th, terrorism, global terrorism, terrorism, terrorists. Terrorists, 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 the terror. Terrorists, terrorism. September 11th, global terrorism, terrorists. Terrorism. September 11th, world terrorism, terrorism. September 11th, global terrorism. September the 11th, terror. Weapons of mass destruction. September the 11th, terrorists. The evil terrorists, no.
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
Iran's nuclear program. Threat Israel's destruction, the world's most dangerous weapons. Nuclear weapon denies the Holocaust, threatens to wipe Israel off the map, sponsors terrorist groups committed to Israel's destruction. Nuclear-armed Iran nuclear weapon. An Iranian nuclear weapon, terrorist nuclear weapon. Brutalized its own people, carried out terrorist attacks, Iran nuclear weapon. Iranian regime. Iranian nuclear program. Iran fails to meet its obligations. Iranian government. Nuclear program. Iran nuclear weapon. We put forward a very clear choice to the Iranian regime. A path that would allow them to rejoin the community of nations if they meet their international obligation, or a path that leads to an escalating series of consequences if they don't.
The G8 has today endorsed an American plan to bring democracy to the Middle East.
And what that is from, that awesome statement that, they've endorsed a plan, is from the history of oil. You have to get on the internet and you have to check out the history of oil because it's phenomenal. Since they discovered oil in the Middle East 97 years ago, the states have been at war, or Britain has been at war in the Middle East for 92 of those years. 93?
Yeah, something like that. Of course, Iran has not attacked anybody in over 300 years.
Yes. They've simply been hanging out.
But they are, the bad guys here, because...
they have oil.
Because they don't
and they're
like,
not sharing.
Because they don't like Israel. Now, when people talk about nuclear weapons in the Middle East, no one talks about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Which is Israel.
With
who
nuclear
stole their
weapons.
nuclear technology from the Americans
Yeah.
in a Mossad operation.
Yeah.
And nobody ever talks about that.
I know, that's amazing. The myopia, the purposeful delusion within major media. I forgot about that. The Mossad did steal nuclear weapons technology. Israel stole from the United
They
States.
stole enriched uranium from the Americans.
And all of a sudden we've got to stand up. Palestinian people, all you have to do is take a look at the way their land has been usurped and the fact that the Middle East has got a real reason to have a hate-on for Israel, just the way that their warmongering goes. But it's not the Israeli people, it's only their owners.
They're crazy right-wing government.
I'm getting a Harper feeling out of this.
BB.
The crazy right-wing government. Remember that. But... Okay, let's take a real quick break because we have to pay some bills and people have to pay bills. We're going to be right back. We are going to take a look at Canada for a second here, and we're going to be taking a look at the way that you can make change. People are making change around the world. There are jobs possible, and actually, peace is possible. We're going to give it a chance. Remember, activism does work. Getting out in the streets helps. Talking to your friends and neighbors helps. And you're with friends right now. This is Radio Free Canada. We'll be right back.
It turns me upside down. Summer, summer, summer. It's like a merry-go-round. I see you under the midnight, all shackles and bows. High shoes with the cleats clicking, a temperamental glow. Oh, don't you let me go. Oh, gotta hold on you, gotta hold on you, I gotta hold on you tonight. Oh, gotta hold on you, gotta hold on you, gotta hold on you. That's right. Oh, it's magic when I'm with you. Oh, it's magic. Oh, it's magic. Just a little magic. You know it's true. I gotta hold on you. Oh, twisted under sideways down. I know you're getting twisted. And you can't calm down. I see you under the midnight. Love darts in your eyes. How far can you take it? Till you ring the lines. There's magic in your eyes. I gotta hold on you, gotta hold on you, gotta hold on you tonight. Gotta hold on you, gotta hold on you, gotta hold on you. Yeah, oh, it's magic.
Ah, yes, it's magic, the way that they create those facts to support their lives. Music from the Cars right there. Heartbeat City is the vinyl album we're playing for you. I'm Darin Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
We're going to have a weather check in just a minute here because it's so worth it to check the weather. And we'd like to thank our friends from WTPN in New York City, Lynn Nichols and Roger Landry, for doing such an excellent job broadcasting truth and freedom across the United States.
Yes, make sure you let Mayor Bloomberg know how well we feel about his policies
man.
and the fact that the NYPD is opening up branches in Toronto, in London, in Tel Aviv. Why is the NYPD opening branches in different countries. I'd really like to find out more about that.
You do realize that the Canadian government just bent right over for the American military police establishment by allowing their cops and their military to operate on Canadian sovereign territory.
Yes, well, it just makes it easier to round up the citizens. No, anyway, we're digressing there a little bit.
Let's talk about now. There's been this war against the unions in in Canada. Okay, full on. The Harper Conservatives are fighting a war against the unions.
But don't you know they care about Canadian values like free speech and the right to collectively bargain and to support the economy.
Please tell me more.
Please tell you more. Well, the Harper government and the RCMP had a little reaction to a Labor Day picnic that happened, which is celebrating work, and this was their reaction.
Check it out. This is crazy.
Well, one of Canada's largest unions is accusing the RCMP of grounding a small plane for political reasons. The Public Service Alliance of Canada hired the plane to fly this banner over Ottawa on the weekend. It reads, in French, "Stephen Harper hates us." Now, the union has flown the banner several times in the past month, but PSAC says this time the plane was grounded because the RCMP said the banner could constitute hate speech and a threat to the Prime Minister. Now, the RCMP deny being behind the plane's grounding, but the incident underscores the pressure that unions are feeling as governments and companies look to cut costs. Robin Gill has that story.
Every Labor Day, they gather for family picnics. They are the brothers and sisters of unions. And every year, they promise a fight.
People are getting to the point where they're going to be willing to strike for a raise.
In 2010, 4.2 million Canadians belonged to a union. In 2011, more joined, bringing the number up to 4.3 million. But the unionization rate in Canada is dropping from 33.7% in 1997 to 31.2% in 2011.
It's difficult to enforce as an individual worker, to enforce your rights under the law. It's a lot easier to enforce your rights as a collective with the union behind you to protect you.
And the unions are feeling increasingly under threat from governments. In British Columbia, teachers had to accept a net zero wage increase. In the past few weeks, Ontario teachers have been up in arms over a law that will freeze their wages for at least 2 years and cut their benefits.
This protects over 10,000 teaching jobs and 10,000 jobs for our educational support workers. So all we're really saying is let's hit the pause button on pay for a couple of years.
And the public face of union strife can get ugly. This was the scene during a wildcat strike at Air Canada this past March. It didn't win the union any friends. And in the end, employees were legislated back to work.
We've got to unite!
So a day that is intended to celebrate workers' rights becomes a time to rally, recruit, and reflect.
Clearly, it's not a great time to be a part of a union. You've got right-wing politicians like Stephen Harper and Tim Hudak trying to blame unions on the economic crisis that we're in today.
Federally, the Harper government is taking a tough stance as part of austerity cuts. It will cut more than 29,000 public sector jobs between now and 2015.
We want to focus on the union advantage and the effect of unionization and the effect it's had on the development of the middle class in this country.
And as the tough economic times continue, so too will the pressure on unions. Robin Gill, Global News, Vancouver.
We're going to be talking extensively about the right-wing attack against unions and the way that slave labor is encroaching on Canadian jobs extensively throughout the fall as we look forward to our launch at Radio Free Canada right here Saturday, September the 15th, this Saturday at 12 noon. We're going to be laying out what we're doing finally to the general public. Join us at the sales at noon. We're both going to be there. This is going to be an awesome day. But the unions, they got to get their act together. They're getting rolled over, man.
They're getting rolled over, and then we're going to end up like is happening in Greece, where austerity is working so well.
Check this out. Check this out. This is unions in Greece.
These police officers, firefighters, pensioners and postal workers say they're fed up with more and more cuts to their salaries and pensions. People who earn more than $1,200 a month will have 10% of their pensions axed. This is on top of a 25% cut to it over the last 2 years.
They've cut our pensions into little pieces, they've imposed an unfair property tax, other taxes on petrol, the supermarkets are expensive, they've squeezed the life out of us, they've disgraced us.
Greece's Prime Minister says these will be the last deep spending cuts.
Until the last minute, we are trying to make the painful cuts as small as possible. But some will happen because there is no other way. I am telling you the truth. There is no other way.
This is little consolation to millions of Greeks who say they can't live on what they're being paid.
The Greek government has pushed the policemen to the cliff's edge. It's inconceivable for us to be able to cope on a salary of $800 to $1,000 a month under these conditions.
The latest government plan to reduce debt includes a so-called labour reserve scheme. It would gradually cut 40,000 public service jobs. Greece has to keep a tight budget if it wants $39 billion in emergency funding. Without this, it won't be able to pay its loans. This week, the International Monetary Fund, European Commission and European Central Bank will assess the Greek budget plan. But with an economy shrinking by about 7% this year and billions of dollars of debt, even these painful cuts may not be enough to keep it in the euro. Nicole Johnston, Al Jazeera.
And okay.
Once again, where was the mainstream media when this was going on?
Wait, they were nowhere. The mainstream media misses out on protests around the world. Last weekend, we had 15 countries in major protests at their capital cities was not reported. This weekend, about the same number, 15 major affluent countries with their citizens standing up against the austerity measures that are being imposed by banks. Banks make money from nowhere and then put people in poverty doing it.
And you wonder why they want us to go to war.
See,
But bank profits down a little bit?
And we can't say that because the Royal Bank just recorded record profits. We've had all our Canadian banks report record profits this year. However, they didn't pay back the money that they got from us in 2008. The reason why each and every Canadian citizen is paying off $3,400 for the bank bailouts that occurred in 2008. And Harper said they didn't occur. Okay, so we have lies to go to war. We have purposely turning away from any type of protest whatsoever. The major media is dropping the ball.
I know. I mean, they didn't pay any attention to the Occupy movement when it started a year ago.
Yes, and we're celebrating the one-year anniversary for the Occupy movement coming up on Monday, September the 17th, where it's call-in sick day. And we're going to be downtown. We're going to do something for sure.
We need to do that,
okay?
yeah.
Okay, so just before we take a break here, take to lighten things up a little bit.
We must bring you the weather report.
Pippa's standing by with the full forecast. Pippa, looks like that nice warm weather isn't quite ready to leave.
I don't know why you would imagine that it would. We've broken thousands of temperature records across the country and the planet this year. In fact, we're heading into the 329th consecutive month with a global temperature above the 20th century average.
Definitely time to light up that barbecue.
Yes, the barbecue.
Pippa, I think the folks at home are probably about ready for that 7-day forecast.
Okay, sure. Let's start up north, way up north. This week, satellites measured the smallest area of Arctic sea ice coverage in recorded history. That's 4 million square kilometers of ice missing since the 1980s. Where did it go? That's bigger than India. And it's happening so quickly, some researchers are now forecasting a summer with no ice in the Arctic Ocean within 10 years. So instead of a bright white sheet reflecting sunlight back into space, that means dark water sucking up even more heat, making it melt faster and faster. Most scientists prefer the friendlier term of feedback loop, but I'm more inclined to call it what it is, an inescapable death spiral.
I think there's a feedback loop in my earpiece, because I believe I just heard myself ask you for the weather report.
This is the weather report. This is what's happening. Scientists are telling us we can put 565 more gigatons of carbon into the atmosphere before global temperatures rise by 2 degrees, which is universally accepted as the threshold of total mayhem. Except if you add up the proven reserves of fossil fuels controlled by the world's energy companies, the oil and gas and coal we currently plan to burn, that amount is 5 times the safe limit. So if you think it's bad now, you just wait and see what hell we're going to unleash once we start drilling under the Arctic and digging up the tar sands so you can drive 3 blocks to get an ice cap. You think all of this extreme weather is a coincidence? You want the weather report? This is a reality report!
So all in all, a great Labor Day weekend and good times for the air conditioner industry.
Until the power goes out, you moron!
In other news, Chavril madness is sweeping the nation. Canada's royal couple of rock was spotted canoodling.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love that.
That's from deeprougeram.com.
Stay tuned. We got to take a quick network break. Thanks for hanging out with us. Remember, global warming is not a myth. It's not climate change. It's caused by oil. And if you're standing against the pipelines, we're standing with you. More news coming up. The Beatles right now. That's music from the Beatles. It's absolutely awesome when it sounds on that great Beatles vinyl sound right here, Radio Free Canada. We're winding up the first 2 hours, or the first hour in the first 2 hours of the fastest talk radio in internet history.
I have a question to ask you.
What's that?
Do you believe the mainstream media?
Well, do you know what? I believe the mainstream media when they turn away from Justin Bieber and they actually do a story, but they don't even complete the story when they do tell the truth.
But they seem to have a bit of a problem with the facts.
Yes, and check this out. Check this out.
Media in this country, the establishment media, is basically willing to be stenographers for our government, and especially the Pentagon. Maybe the group that they should be most skeptical about, they're the least skeptical about, and they just take whatever they say and they present it as news. We have a great example of that when it comes to the reporting on Iran. Apparently, the Pentagon wants to fearmonger on it, scare people, so that apparently we're more ready to go to war with Iran. So CNN is, of course, here to do their bidding. Wolf Blitzer is going to be talking to Chris Lawrence, their CNN Pentagon correspondent. Let's watch.
Missile tests showed off their capabilities, and a new report from the Pentagon confirms it. Iran's ballistic missiles are more accurate, more versatile, and more deadly than ever. The report finds that Iran may be technically capable of flight testing an intercontinental ballistic missile by 2015, the type of missile that could hit the U.S. if it works.
Of course, as usual, Glenn Greenwald has done a brilliant job of breaking this down at Salon.com, where he explains, you know what, that's the same exact report that Fox News was using 2 years ago. Oh my God, they could hit us by 2015. There's nothing new about it at all. It's just another round of propaganda. But it's about to get much worse. Let's keep watching.
Analyst John Pike says Iran already has missiles that reach more than 600 miles, enough to strike Israel's eastern border. But the report reveals Iran continues to improve a ballistic missile with a range of nearly 1,300 miles.
Do you see that? Maybe. By the way, do they have the missiles that can go 1,300 miles? If you listen really carefully to that report, no, they don't. They're working on that program. So wait, Earlier, you said they might be able to hit the U.S., but their best missiles only go 600 miles. That's nowhere near the U.S. Don't worry, CNN has an explanation. Watch.
The real battle may come on the high seas, though. Within the last few weeks, the U.S. Navy has doubled the number of minesweepers in the region to protect the oil supply moving through the Persian Gulf. The Pentagon report says Iran is developing short-range missiles that can identify ships at sea and maneuver towards them in mid-flight. And Iran already has a missile that could reach the U.S. if it could put it on a ship and move it to within 600 miles of the American coastline.
If they get a ship within 600 miles. How the hell would they get a ship within 600 miles of the U.S.? In fact, this is the best part of it. Turns out last year, CNN, quoting the Pentagon without any questions, again, last year, said the exact opposite. When the Pentagon wanted to put out propaganda about how strong they were and how weak Iran was, listen to what CNN wrote on their website. Quote, "It would be nearly impossible for Iran's Navy to threaten the U.S. coast with warships," military experts said Wednesday. We're not done yet. Same report from September 28th of 2011. Iran doesn't have the capability to come within close proximity to the United States to conduct hostile activities. Even if Iran launched missiles, we would sink their ships immediately. So which one is it? But that's the amazing thing about CNN. They don't care at all. They're like, okay, Pentagon propaganda tells me last year that it is impossible for Iran to move close enough to hit us. Pentagon propaganda tells me this year that, oh my God, they could move close enough to hit us. Did anything change in the meanwhile? No. Most trusted name in news. What a joke.
Today, 300 million hits on its website, CNN,
30,000.
30,000 hits.
Yeah.
I thought it was 3 million. I don't care. At any rate, it's so insignificant compared. Credibility in news comes to when people want the news, they turn to it. Here in the Okanagan, you do not go to CHBC or AM 1150 site. You go to Castanet. Independent news once again.
Well, it's nice to know that CNN has decided to replace some of its program with reality shows.
CNN?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'm not kidding. They've decided to replace some of their programming hours with reality shows due to their low ratings.
This is one of the reasons why I like working around here. You bring me these pieces of information. I love that, man. I really do. The internet, you can flick it on and find out almost anything. We're finding out the truth.
Of course, you must realize I did get this information from Russia Today. So, you got to question the source. But I think they're a little more trustworthy than CNN somehow.
We're going to take a quick break in the first hour. Thanks for joining us. We've got an action-packed hour coming up, and we're going to cover some of those countries that are in protest right now, the effects of GMOs in you, and the fact that protesting against pipelines is working. I am Darin Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
We'll be right back after a break. We're going to take about a couple of minutes for our networks, and we'll be right back.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
Yes, once again, you are tuned in to Radio Free Canada with Robert Nisbet and Darin Howard. Join them every Monday as they send across a galaxy of misinformation and bring you a planet of truth and the hope that democracy might actually exist if we get in the streets and demand it. Mock Harper Monday Every week, a new chance to make fun of our imperious leader as he leads a draconian force of right-wingers and this country right off of a cliff. We're going to have Mark Harper Monday back again as Radio Free Canada gets set up for its launch. Welcome to hour number 2 of the fastest 2 hours in talk radio. I am Darin Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
It is so good to have you along because activism is winning everywhere. We've got positive information out there. And this hour, we're going to talk about solutions to our problems. Starting with September 15th, Saturday, we're going to be at City Park at 12 noon right here in Kelowna. Make sure you join us on the internet. If you can't make it to Kelowna, join us no matter where you are.
Yes, you got to get out there and demand democracy and hold our leaders to account. Accountability seems to be missing from politicians' lexicon.
I don't know why politicians decided that they could continue lying with the internet in action, but they think that that's what's coming. And we're going to continue using the internet to spread around truth and hope as long as we can.
As long as we can, as long as they allow the internet to exist, as long as we have access to it. However, we must look into a peer-to-peer sharing solution for when they do decide to finally crack down on the internet.
Yes, and we are working on that in the background. We're also working on documentaries about government opacity. Police brutality, that's a major issue. We're going to start facing up September 15th as Radio Free Canada launches and we discuss police brutality. Remember, average minds created the problem.
Average minds can solve it.
We are going to make sure that we keep you informed and grinning, too. Why? Because we can. We are not corporate radio. We're allowed to be in a good mood when we're presenting the news and optimistic that our solutions as humans is going to work.
I think we got to laugh our way through any tragedy that is occurring. And, you know, I mean, we are presenting rather grim statistics today and grim news about what's going on. But there's always a side of humor towards it.
Yes, and there's a sign of hope towards it because remember, we can dispel the wars that are creating the lies or the lies that are creating the wars. We can dispel those lies by simply continuously telling the truth because people are waking up all across the planet right now. It's awesome to see.
Now, wasn't it Winston Churchill who said the first casualty in war is truth?
Yes. He did.
I believe he did say that. I think another person who said, it was Ben Franklin who said, those who give up liberty for security deserve neither.
Deserve neither. And that's why we're here. Remember, human beings, even though if you listen to major media, you think that everybody is an idiot, okay? Everybody's stupid. And you know what? People always have stupid moments. It doesn't make any difference how many letters there are after your name. Everyone's a human being and makes a mistake, but that's no reason to fear them, and that's no reason to have draconian medieval laws lorded over top of everyone. But misinformation, that's the biggest problem that we're facing right now.
I think they call that spin in the media.
Propaganda. When the media becomes the front person for the oil companies and the conservative government,
and the Pentagon.
Yeah, you got to straighten things out. So let's run some of that media we're talking about.
Okay.
News in a nutshell, or frenemies on the march. With America and her allies locked in a protracted fight with enemies partially funded by some same allies, the USA continues the hunt for some guy with a popular website. A man on the run with a global network of leakism. Now is the time to remember, loose lips sink slips. We all know this is a tough fight, lest we undermine apathy, America's secret weapon. The less you know, the longer we'll stay in the fight, as determined by a recent CIA study. This is a complicated war where we pay narco warlords millions to set up roadblocks so we can pay them again when we're blocked. Allies we paid in the past are now attacking us in the present, and Taliban trucks look suspiciously like the ones we just gave to our Afghan allies. Ford trucks built Taliban tough. From civilian casualties to fighting frenemies, there's nothing much new. Except for 90,000 leaks new to you. America's full-service war continues. Whether you're insurgency, counterinsurgency, or not quite sure, there's something for everyone. Good night, and better duck.
MarkFiore.com is where you go to get that kind of entertainment. And remember, the internet is out there. Question us. Question what we're talking about, because we're presenting facts and figures just like major news does. They just don't have Justin Bieber and royalty included.
Yeah, well, we we try to ignore the irrelevant and bring you news that actually matters. Nobody cares what the latest box scores are, or what the most recent rock song is, or the most recent celebrity scandal.
I mean, you know, you look at the front newsstands when you're checking out in the grocery, and I always call it the morality report. How many times do they blatantly refer to sex or somebody's internal personal lives on the front pages of those things called magazines? The magazine industry has got to be one of the most corrupt ones. I mean, it's amazing at what they're allowed with printing. Just look at the National Enquirer. We are not like that. This is where the intellect comes to be amazed, entertained, infused, and urged to start their own radio station or start their own newspaper.
Exactly. We must get the information out there because we are all information warriors, and we must battle the forces of darkness that tend to keep us in the dark.
You know what? I feel that way all the time. I wake up in the morning. It is a new day. We do have possibilities, and hope and freedom are going to win. It's inevitable, you know, unless, of course, you listen to Stephen Harper, and then we're all going to hell and deserve to be shot for it.
Or if you listen to CBC, CHBC, Global News, CTV, I mean, they all seem to have the same agenda, which is just repeating what the government tells them is the truth.
I know, and it's kind of annoying, isn't it? Just before we get to our first news segments, as we run the long format of the program for the second hour, just a little bit of advice to our new network people. This is a note for our friends at Homeland Security. Bomb parts.
Bomb parts, terrorism.
Terror.
Pipeline.
And of course, fuses, stereo parts. What other sets them off? Sustainability.
Photographing cops.
Yeah. We are going to be pushing for municipal sustainability right here, Saturday, September the 15th, and that means all kinds of things. Permaculture, we're going to be talking about aquaponics, we're going to be talking about jobs. Above all, we're going to be talking about prosperity. And the reason why, we don't have to have people die for no reason whatsoever. The news is out, the internet is on, and we're a part of it. This is Radio Free Canada, bringing you an alternative to news nonsense.
Exactly. Make sure you get out there and join us on September 15th for Democracy, Demand Democracy. Get out there, take part in the process.
Right on. Okay, let's run a quick clip while we got a chance before we take our first break.
Well, we don't all want to be afraid, but of course, our Harper government is still trying to keep us afeared.
The Canadian government has created a new counter-terrorism police unit to be deployed in the oil-rich province of Alberta. The ruling Conservative Party, led by Prime Minister Stephen Harper, contends that there is an observable threat from terrorism, which justifies this large expenditure of taxpayer money. This comes at a time when working-class Canadians are being force-fed privatization and austerity. Critics claim that the police and the increasingly authoritarian statesmen who they serve are deliberately exaggerating the threat posed by terrorism in order to justify illegal foreign wars of aggression and anti-democratic changes domestically.
You know, the almighty noble lie is all right when it's perpetrated by the 1%, because apparently we the people are too stupid to live by ourselves and understand the complexities of the world. So an enemy needs to be created so that nationalism and jingoism can be created. And, at the end of the day, the profits end up in the pockets of the big, huge businesses, the 1%. And it's the people that lose out. And we need to resist this idea.
Alberta's counter-terrorism unit is Canada's 5th Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, or INSET. These politicized entities were created after the events of 9/11, which analysts claim was a false flag attack.
Everything has come down to 9/11, so that's why I think it's so important that people start investigating 9/11, because we do not have terrorists forming plans here in Alberta, in Calgary. We do not have that.
There is no statistically significant terrorist threat to ordinary people in either the U.S. or Canada. Even if you count the 3,000 people murdered on 9/11 as victims of terrorism, and of course they were victims of state terrorism,
false flag terrorism. Even so, you end up with lightning strikes and bathtub drownings being a vastly greater statistically significant threat than terrorism.
First Nations groups and environmental activists who oppose Canada's oil production are concerned that they will be designated terrorists and targeted by the new counterterrorism unit, which leads critics to conclude that Canada's transition into a full-blown police state looms large. Joshua Blakeney, Press TV, Calgary.
That's awesome. Okay, just setting it straight out, okay? You have vastly more chance of being killed by a slip in a bathtub than by a terrorist. There's no threat. You talk to some of these people, and I'm talking to some of the pro-lifer guys who gather every Tuesday in front of the hospital here in Kelowna. And one of the women actually said, there are terrorists in Canada right now. She said that we need to protect ourselves from Russian spies stealing our secrets in Canada. This is a hardcore right-wing Christian representative who's speaking to me straight out in Kelowna. There is a spy around every corner as far as these people are concerned. It's weird.
War is peace. Ignorance is strength.
Yes. And George Orwell, thank you for giving the script to Stephen Harper on how to run the country.
It was not an instruction manual.
I know. And Bob Ray actually said that in Parliament. He goes, look, 1984 wasn't an instruction manual, but Stephen Harper is imposing a police state in Canada right now, and they're cracking down. They're also railroading the entire population by forcing through pipelines that we don't need.
No, we don't need. We need to start refining our own energy resources here in Canada.
So remember that if they built 2 refineries, that would create 250,000 union oil working jobs. 2 oil refineries to process this huge chunk of oil, because I know that we need to process oil. A lot of people would say, no, we need to hardline and get rid of it, but we need plastic, we need computers. Sorry, guys. I'm going to take a midline approach on this, but we should be producing jobs with our own raw resources. Where are the sawmills?
They are burning down, and we're wondering why.
Yeah, why are they burning down all these sawmills, and why did they close them in the first place? Oh, yeah, because we want a foreign sawmill run by slave labor to profit from our raw resources.
So we can buy back our processed lumber from them at inflated prices. That just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
And its question is, why isn't major media talking about this each and every day? That's why we're here. We have to take a quick break. We've got news coming from around the world. What do we got coming up next?
We must talk about Bishop Tutu and his reaction to Tony Blair's speaking engagement in South Africa.
Radio Free Canada. Remember it, Demand Democracy, coming up this Saturday.
I'll bring my time
Yes, again, just dump it right out because we got a lot of news. This is Rio is the album. Duran Duran is the name of the band. Vinyl is what you're listening to because major media cannot handle it. And, you know, it kind of makes you smile.
It does make me smile.
Yeah. What makes me smile? Well, you know, when people get made fun of just a little bit.
It reminds me of a little quote that people asked Bill Maher, what would he do if Mitt Romney won the election? He said, I'm a comedian. Why are you asking me?
And we like to laugh and smile around here a lot because being an activist and making change out there doesn't mean that you're an uptight guy wearing tinfoil all the time on your head. You have to smile. And I always believe that mockery is one of the highest forms of political speech that we have.
It's pretty sad when the most highly rated news programs people say they trust more than major news is shows like the Daily Show and the Corbett Show,
the Corbin Report,
or the Corbin Report.
And that is it's amazing because the Daily Show is just straight out mocking the insanity on major news.
Yeah,
but it's considered a credible news source. More credible than major news sources right across the board, the Daily Show. But we've got to do our same thing. We do have to mock a little bit here. So I got to run this. This is great, man.
Learned a lot from that, didn't we? 10 years ago, this month, the UK government, led by Tony Blair, published a dossier on Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. Every allegation in it, according to the US government's Iraq Survey Group, was false. Well, with me to talk about all of that is none other than multimillionaire former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Anthony Charles Linton Blair. Hello, Tony. How do you answer the charges that you are a liar, a cheat, a fraud, a mass murderer, a killer, a supporter of torture, that you're an international war criminal, that you should be in jail, that you should answer for the lives of hundreds of thousands of people killed?
I think I'll deal with one issue at a time.
What's that noise in the background? Is Cherie coughing? Is it true your Faith Foundation is accepting money from Saddam Hussein's Swiss bank account? Are his people offering you Saddam Hussein money?
Well, if people want to give money to the Faith Foundation, I'm delighted. That's you don't run foundations unless you're trying to raise money the whole time. But the fact is that anybody who's giving money to a charity, if they're giving it to a genuine charitable cause, they're losing money.
You were Middle East peace envoy, was it because you wanted money? You did encourage the killing and slaughter of more Palestinians.
Well, why not encourage it? I mean, it's worth billions and billions of pounds.
Both UK parties support selling arms to Persian Gulf dictators like Bahrain. Do you think human rights, the killing of children, should be an issue when one sells weapons?
I just think with this, I'm not making some great heavy political point. I'm simply saying they got the time to consult. But if I were them, I'd literally just disentangle these two issues. I think they're quite separate issues.
What advice do you give to EU politicians when the United States wants them to break international law? Presumably the CIA threatened to destroy governments?
That's to be expected. But, it's, as I used to tell the Labour Party, it's better to be in government than opposition.
Thank you.
It's a great privilege.
Mr. Tony Blair. That was cut together by the kind folks at Press TV.
Yeah, and when they're making fun over there, remember, there are outside news sources. NHK Tokyo, Al Jazeera, Russia Today. These are all national news sources from different parts of the country. SCIS in Africa is an independent news source you never hear quoted on our North American news. Yeah, have you ever noticed the amazing myopia that there is?
Oh, I know. They just go with AFP or AP and Reuters.
And so this myopia that's in major news has put the news where it is right now, losing ratings and losing credibility right across the board. Argentina, Brazil, amazing newscasts down there. But we've never seen one of them on North American news.
No, not one. And Telesur is a new one put up in Venezuela as well.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. But there's us out there, there's them out there, and then we have major news paying attention only to itself, amazingly looking in the mirror. And the one thing that got me was this Tony Blair Bishop Tutu thing.
Yeah.
That got me.
I'm just going to run the clip. It's kind of self-explanatory.
South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu wants former President George W. Bush and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair held responsible in international court for what he sees as war crimes in the invasion of Iraq. On Sunday, Blair responded to Tutu's comments, which were made in an op-ed in the UK's Observer. Tutu won the Nobel Peace Prize for his part in ending apartheid. He's been an opponent of the Iraq War, but this weekend he went one step further, writing, "Instead of recognizing that the world we lived in necessitated sophisticated leadership that would bring the global family together, the then leaders of the US and UK fabricated the grounds to behave like playground bullies and drive us further apart." Tutu went on to say, in a consistent world, Bush and Blair would face charges for war crimes, just as African and Asian leaders brought before the International Criminal Court in Hague, Netherlands. Blair posted a response on his website. "I have a great respect for Archbishop Tutu's fight against apartheid, but to repeat the old canard that we lied about the intelligence is completely wrong, as every single independent analysis of the evidence has shown." Blair also cited the mass killings conducted by former Iraq leader Saddam Hussein as justification for the invasion. CBC in Canada has more on Tutu's call for an international trial.
He argues that George Bush and Tony Blair's actions have not only harmed Muslim and Judeo-Christian relations around the world, but have also created the backdrop for civil war in Syria and potentially a possible wider Middle Eastern conflict involving Iran.
Tutu's op-ed came after the Archbishop pulled out of a conference that included Blair. According to the Christian Science Monitor, Tutu's call for accountability would likely involve an organization other than the International Criminal Court. While the ICC can handle cases of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, it does not prosecute crimes of aggression. Any potential prosecution over the Iraq War would likely come under the aggression category. Former President Bush has not commented on the matter. Also worth noting, the U.S. is among the nations that choose not to recognize the International Criminal Court. For Newsy, I'm Zach Toombs. Multiple sources, The Real Story.
And the cry out, democracy now. Make sure you get on there and see the lies that led to war. Tony Blair, of course, maintaining this statement that we invaded because of weapons of mass destruction. We invaded because of accurate intelligence.
Yeah, we didn't lie, and every independent investigation has borne that out. I mean, how can you allow those words to come out of your mouth?
Or the reporter to put up with it, or even just to not say, here's Tony Blair lying.
Yeah.
Because it's well known that the reasons for 9/11 are lies. It's well known that we should not be in Afghanistan, we should not be in Iraq, let alone what they're gearing up for right now. Nonsense and BS. Okay, we haven't even touched pipelines.
No,
we haven't even gotten close. But I want to, this one that you've got about the protests not being run on CBC.
This is from South African news.
Yeah, this is about what we were just talking about.
A small but very vocal group pitched up outside the venue where the former Prime Minister was scheduled to speak. They say the invasion of Iraq was morally indefensible and Blair and then President George W. Bush to be held accountable. Today they demanded Blair be arrested, saying he's committed crimes against humanity. Earlier this week, Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu cancelled his attendance at the event. Tutu said he couldn't share venue with Blair. He too raised objections to the Iraqi invasion and Blair's decision to support the United States.
It's not befitting to give a talk on leadership. We are also most highly jubilated, and we're very, very enthralled that the Archbishop Tutu has withdrawn from this talks.
Blair lied to the world. If they wanted a regime change, they should have said so. But they actually made the lie that they said they're going in for weapons of mass destruction, which they haven't found. Millions of people have been killed. The blood of Tony Blair's hands are on all of those people. So we're pretty upset that he's given so much of dignity when in actual fact so many people have died.
The Young Communist League says a company which invited Blair have a lot to answer for.
Iraq today will never know peace as it used to know because of the intervention, because of the power hungry, because of the hunger of oil that both America and Britain has always had.
The media was barred from covering Blair's speech at the summit.
Our apologies for the audio on that, but whatever.
The media was barred from covering Blair's speech at the summit. The media was barred from covering Blair's speech at the summit.
Bishop Desmond Tutu boycotts it because of war crimes, straight out. Okay, we had, and we don't have, talking about news that the news didn't cover. The news didn't cover the fact it was barred from Tony Blair's speech.
Now, Tony Blair received his usual $238,000 for speaking at this conference. Okay. Bishop Tutu was going to speak for free. However, he refused to share the stage with a war criminal. This is a man who won the Nobel Peace Prize legitimately.
Yes, yes. Unlike our current warmongering president down in the States there, who has decided that, we need drones to kill children. We do say that, and I don't mean to make light of such things either, okay? It is a serious problem on which we are dealing with, but if I get totally bent out of shape all the time and start screaming and ranting, I'm going to get gray hairs and not enjoy my life, which we are advising you to do. Remember, if you take advantage of your freedoms right now, you're cheesing off a conservative, and that gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling on the inside, or at least for 75% of the population.
Yeah, we all need warm fuzzies now and then, especially in this time of what's occurring as far as the global polar ice caps are concerned.
Yes, and the war about oil is not necessary because we should be phasing out oil. We've got this awesome little video that we're just grabbing for you right now. And, you be the judge.
Now on to the global warming front in what could be the smoking gun, proving the planet is rapidly changing as a result of climate change. Sea ice in the Arctic Ocean is now sitting at its lowest recorded level ever, breaking a previous record set in 2007. Here's what the ice over the Arctic Ocean looked like in 1979. And this is what it looks like now, just 32 years later. And with a few weeks still left in the summer, the ice is expected to melt even further. According to researchers at the University of Colorado at Boulder, the melting ice is, quote, a strong signal of long-term global warming, end quote. And according to climate scientist Michael Mann, the director of the Earth Systems Science Center at Penn State, the sea ice decline is perhaps the most profound of those cautionary tales because the models have basically predicted that we shouldn't see what we're seeing now for several decades. So not only is climate change happening, it's happening faster than we all thought. Something tells me you won't hear about this tonight at the RNC. After all, the Koch brothers are hanging around. Something tells me you won't hear about this tonight at the RNC. After all, the Koch brothers are hanging around.
And that's, okay, talking about the smoking gun, the Arctic Ice Report, we have the David Suzuki Foundation that's all over it, and the CBC that's not reporting it. This is why we need independent news and a major basis right across this country.
See, this should be front and center of the news every day, every hour they're doing a netcast because this is really important. It's the survival of the human species.
And the survival of the species is what we're talking about right here at Radio Free Canada. If you're about a 10,000-year plan as opposed to a 5-month plan, you're on our side. I believe that this species can easily last we can easily support 20 billion people on this planet using current technology, not even stretching things out. I'm going to back that up with a few thoughts coming up right after the break. Okay, stay tuned. We're going to be back again about 3 minutes from now. Genesis into music in between now and then. Music right there from Genesis, the Invisible Touch album, as we continue with Radio Free Canada. Hi there, I am Darin Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet, and we are living in the land of confusion.
And it is brought to us by major corporations. One person running all of the newspapers in the country has devolved down to the point that we're at right now.
Well, I think it's 5 in the States.
Is it? 5 whole people?
Yeah, I think we're moving towards that. So of course, we're moving towards that same model here in Canada as well.
You know, there was a blanket statement from the Black Press Group to make sure that nobody underneath Black Press Group ever reported a positive story on the Native Land Treaty negotiations that was reported in the Capital News right here. And it's the reason why we need major people or major independent news to be developed and promoted. So we're urging you to start up a radio station or a newspaper to start talking about the truth, because you can do it. You will make the difference.
And the truth will set us free. The truth will bring us democracy. We have to hold our leaders accountable and demand democracy.
Absolutely. That's part about being an intelligent person. You get off the couch to make sure you discipline your kids. You get off the couch to go to work. So get off the couch and go out and make a difference, because we can have prosperity, double your working wage, half the price for groceries. That is what we're going for at Radio Free Canada, and we're going to talk about that plan coming up on September the 15th. This Saturday at 12 noon. Make sure you join us down at the things. And Rob's looking at me going, shut up. Can we play this clip?
No,
Because
that's okay.
Important.
I'm going to set up a little bit. I'm going to set up a little bit first here. Now, the U.S., the purveyor of truth and democracy and freedom, all those wonderful things. And then Mr. Baird came out and said Iran is the greatest threat to peace and security throughout the world.
And Stephen Harper said Muslims are our enemies.
Islamicism is the greatest threat to world peace.
That's right.
Now, I'm wondering how many countries has Iran invaded? None in the past 200 years, anyway.
Right.
But the U.S. seems to be a little less circumspect when it comes to violating other countries' sovereignty.
Really? Pray tell.
Yes, and one thing we don't hear about very often is what's going on in South America and in Latin America.
Yeah.
There's an undeclared war going on down there as well as the ones in Yemen and Somalia and Pakistan. But anyway, here's one in Honduras that we're talking about.
In addition to the multiple wars being waged by the U.S. military to fight the war on terror, there's also a war being waged in Latin America to fight the war on drugs. For the second time in 1 month, a DEA agent has shot and killed someone in Honduras for allegedly transporting drugs. A few weeks ago, the DEA oversaw a raid in which 4 civilians died traveling by boat. So why is U.S. law enforcement interfering in the region? And what is the war on drugs all about? To talk more about this, I'm joined now by Adrian Pine, professor at American University. Thanks so much for coming in, Adrian.
Thanks for having me.
So this is the second time in the course of a few weeks that this happened. We just had you on to talk about this a couple weeks ago. Talk about what exactly happened in this instance.
Well, from what we understand, and there hasn't been a lot of information coming out about this, but there was a plane carrying cocaine and it crashed. And DEA agents who are acting basically on their own authority arrived at the scene, and when somebody refused to immediately surrender, they shot and killed him, one of the pilots.
But give us a hyperbolic situation of what this would mean if a Honduran local law enforcement in Honduras came over here and started implementing these kind of activities.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the absurdity of it, really, is that, you know, it's impossible for us to imagine what is happening in Honduras happening here in the United States, and yet that's what we have to imagine in order to understand just how out of control things are and just how little democracy Hondurans have, how little say they have when there's a foreign nation carrying out law enforcement operations without any input from Honduras, simply, and not even law enforcement operations. I mean, it's illegal by our laws, it's illegal by their laws to simply be carrying out executions. And, you know, really, this is the same politics of the Obama administration that we've seen in other countries as well, you know, where with the kill lists and with drone attacks, is that this sort of sense that it's okay for us to just be going in and killing people without any due process, without any judicial process whatsoever. And as I mentioned earlier, there's just simply no clarity on what the rules of engagement are in this war that is taking lives with no legitimation.
Why do you think that the U.S. is pouring money into notoriously corrupt agencies, the military and the local police? How would that even further its goals? I mean, what's really going on there?
Well, the less democracy that there is in Central American or Latin American countries, the greater influence the United States can hold over those countries.
There are many similarities between the drug war and the war on terror, as you mentioned. To wrap it up, I just wanted to mention that the United Nations Drug and Crime Czar told The Observer that drug money is what kept the financial system afloat during the global financial crisis. So it really does come full circle there with the top tier of the people who are really running the show. It is a very important story to touch upon. Thank you so much for coming in and joining us. That was Adrian Pine, professor at American University.
And that was from Russia Today, and amazingly insightful. Okay, if you take a look at the war on drugs and the war on terror, they're the same things. They're both manufactured out of nowhere with no end in sight. Law enforcement against prohibition. The war on drugs has failed, straight out. And even though it's failed, our imperious leader says, no, we got to keep this war in place.
The war on drugs has failed. The war on terror has failed. Drugs have won and terror has won because the Americans are more scared now than they've ever been in their lives.
And using more drugs than they ever have in their lives. But, of course, keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. But the U.S., interventionism, this is what I talk about extensively. If we weren't such greedy, selfish individuals on the international stage, we wouldn't have a problem with terrorism. It's not our oil. It's not our resources. It's not our diamonds, not our gold. We should stay out of it.
But don't you know they hate our freedoms?
Which is the reason why they're upset, right?
Yes, they're upset because we're free and they're not. But what are we actually free to do?
You are free to quietly go to work and quietly go home.
And go shopping.
And that's it.
And watch TV and be programmed.
A weird, strange society we are.
That's really an odd definition of freedom.
It is. It's a very odd definition of freedom when, of course, you could support yourself before all of these insane medieval laws were put into place. You could go hunting. You could grow your own food. You could share that food with your friends and neighbors. And now you can't do any of these things? This is a civilization?
But, of course, the rhetoric is America is the freest nation on earth, and we bring peace and democracy.
I know.
I'm
You
sorry.
sit there, you bring what? What do you bring? No, you bring Coca-Cola and KFC, and that's what you bring. Just take a look at the franchise development in the restaurant industry, and you'll see what kind of freedom. You are free to be poor and to pay it all off. But we're talking about interventionism. I want to run this other clip here.
Yeah, this is what's going on. Yeah, let's just put this on.
Well, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Hina Rabbani Kar is just one of the many world leaders attending the 16th NAM summit in the Iranian capital, Tehran. In an interview with Press TV's correspondent, she lashed out at the U.S. for its drone strikes in Pakistan.
You see, Pakistan's position on that is clear today, and it has been clear in the past. Our position is that this is something which is counterproductive, it is unlawful, it is illegal, and therefore they must cease. And this is what the Parliament of Pakistan has clearly said. We are in close discussion with the US to find ways and means of, using different ways and means of being able to achieve the same objectives as far as the US is concerned. So it is important that we engage with them to ensure that the use of drone strikes in Pakistan territory should cease immediately. As I said, this is something that the Parliament of Pakistan has put through as a resolution. This is a position that Pakistan has held for consistently. So we would hope that we would find more acceptability of this.
From Press TV again, that's awesome.
That took place at the non-aligned membership conference that was held in Tehran discussing foreign policy.
And you got to realize, just because they're brown people doesn't mean they don't have a full-blown civilization, that they don't deserve our respect. Just because they go to a different church than we do doesn't mean that they deserve to be bombed or to have their weddings bombed or any drone strikes whatsoever. And now the U.S. has made up this amazing story. See, the U.S., if you'll notice, they're a bunch of kind of cowardly individuals because they only pick on states without nuclear weapons.
But Pakistan has nuclear weapons.
Yeah, so they've changed. We've noticed a change where they're trying to line up Pakistan as being some kind of enemy. We've seen the propaganda in major TV.
Yeah, well, Foreign Minister Hillary Clinton had an announcement over the weekend.
Oh, yeah, check this out.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton reported to Congress Friday that her department will officially designate the Haqqani network as a terrorist organization. The BBC has more on the group.
From the tribal districts of Pakistan, the Haqqani network has mounted high-profile attacks against foreign troops in Afghanistan.
The group is known to have carried out suicide bombings and even a rocket attack on the U.S. Embassy. The Guardian calls them the most sophisticated, ruthless, and well-organized of the groups that make up the Afghan insurgency. The New York Times broke the story and said government officials have debated designating the network for 2 years. Why so long? Fox News explains that the designation could prove politically tricky.
Well, our relationship with Pakistan is already strained at times, and some in the Obama administration were apparently worried the Pakistani military and intelligence organizations could take this the wrong way.
The group is known to have ties to Pakistan. The Wall Street Journal reports many officials believe the designation could hinder U.S. efforts in Afghanistan by implying that Pakistan is a state sponsor of terrorism. Officials have also argued negotiating with the Haqqani is key to achieving the U.S.'s mission, but ultimately the attacks on U.S. troops forced Clinton's hand. The Washington Post reports back in August, Congress ordered Clinton to either designate the group or explain why it did not meet the criteria within 30 days. Clinton's report came 2 days before the deadline. Now that it's official, experts say the new designation will allow the U.S. to go after the network's foreign funding. But CNN's Barbara Starr says the group has too much in-country support for this blow to be enough.
The U.S. effort may be just another step on the road, but nobody really thinks it's going to make a fundamental difference unless Pakistan itself gets involved and cracks down on this militant network.
For Newsy, I'm Logan Tittle. Multiple sources, the real story.
And I'm sure Pakistan will get right on board with that.
Yeah. Okay, so, we're looking at this world interventionist. Pax Americana is a phrase that you have to take a look at, where the United States, for some strange, bizarre reason, believes that it should have its society imposed on everybody on the planet. More people in prison, more poverty, more arms spending than anyone else, and they think that that is civilization.
Oh, shut up and have a Coke.
I'm sorry. Didn't I get a coupon from McRaunchy's? I think I got to go spend my coupon now. Yeah. This is amazing. And also slave labor. One thing, the major thing that they promote with all of these major corporations free to operate in the other countries that they invade is slave labor.
Well, the best place to get a job in the U.S. is in prison.
Yeah, and that's their growth industry.
Yeah.
Our growth industry. And, of course, their GOP is related to that. Here in Canada, 25% of our gross GNP, gross national product, is legal fees.
Yeah.
Okay, most people don't know that. Stockwell Day was shocked when I told him that. He looked at me and goes, "Is that right?" And I said, "Yeah, that's right. Legal fees, 25% of our GDP. If we get sued more, we'll get more health care." And we're going to be talking about that story coming up on Friday's show right here, Radio Free Canada. Make sure you stay tuned for that. And we're going to take a break.
Okay.
Coming back, what are we talking about, brother?
We're going to talk a little bit more about this reaction from Pakistan.
And I think that we better stay on these things because the one thing that I haven't talked about is the fact that China and Russia have said if there's an invasion in Iran, they're going to retaliate on a world basis. That news was covered right here at Radio Free Canada, and I'm going to be talking about that next, too, right here. We'll be right back.
turn. They weigh my friend like a willow I can't bear. No man called my name, no man came. So I walked so down away from you. Maybe your attention was more than you could do.
The evil temptress of the wicked world. Stevie Nicks right there for you off the vinyl with that Wild-Hearted Wildflower. Neat song off of the B-sides with right here, Radio Free.
Oh, you gotta love Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks. Now, one woman I don't really care for is Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton really got my attention. She was shot at.
Yeah? Wow.
Talking about stories they don't carry on major news. Did you know, Steve, that Hillary Clinton was shot at?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay, see, the world is...
I heard they threw tomatoes and shoes at her when she visited Egypt.
Yeah, out of all the stories that they haven't covered, tomatoes and shoes, they haven't covered all of these attacks against Hillary Clinton in the general public.
I did hear about that. They took a couple shots at her consular vehicle when she was there. Yeah.
Well, I don't think she was in the car, but it was. They thought it was her motorcade. Make sure you get on the news and start hearing about this. The one that we covered, though, the amazing story that I put online last year was the fact that China turned around and said, because we have so much oil, we are trading oil with Iran in our own dollar. That was against the big American cartel thing. They started using their own currency to buy oil from Iran. They stated straight out, if Iran is invaded, that will be considered a strike against our sovereignty. This is China speaking, one of their top generals. And they said straight out, we will clean their clocks on a global basis. The threat wasn't a small threat either, because this is China's official news. That means that everybody within the Chinese government sanctioned the fact that they said, strike Iran, you're striking China.
Well, the thing is, China does hold veto power over any unilateral decisions made in the UN at the Security Council as well. And I don't think Obama can go in against Iran without a vote from the Security Council at the UN.
But there we are. We're at our saber-rattling height right now as embassies are closed and diplomats are expelled. However, nobody is talking about the fact that China and Russia can turn around and kick the U.S.'s butt seriously, because the U.S. military is already overextended in many, many different theaters. One of the ones that you're talking about, Pakistan. This is amazing that we have an overextended military that's making, we're going to invade another country?
Why are they going around making new enemies all the time? I mean, they go and designate this group now in Pakistan as a terrorist group, and they're going after their money, apparently.
Right.
But, of course, things aren't going so well in Pakistan. I mean...
Yeah. Hey, check this out. Hey, you make up your own mind. Well, let's run the clip.
Pakistani authorities say a car filled with more than 242 pounds of explosives, driven by a suicide bomber, slammed into a vehicle from the U.S. consulate in Peshawar, in the northwest of Pakistan, a region where Islamic militants have been active. The State Department said the powerful blast injured 2 U.S. personnel and 2 Pakistani staff from the consulate, but their injuries were not life-threatening. The head of the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad praised the Pakistani security forces for saving their lives by pulling them to safety. Pakistani officials, however, said 2 Pakistanis died in the attack and 25 were injured. And there was initial confusion when the information minister showed reporters a U.S. passport claiming that 2 Americans had been killed. The State Department insisted that was not correct. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, traveling in Indonesia, said the suicide bomber apparently was targeting the van from the U.S. consulate. She said some of the injured were airlifted to hospitals in the capital of Islamabad.
Let me just very clearly condemn the attack on our consulate personnel in Peshawar, Pakistan. We pray for the safe recovery of both American and Pakistani victims. And once again, we deplore the cowardly act of suicide bombing and terrorism.
Pakistan, too, condemned the attack and launched an investigation. Peshawar has been the site of previous attacks, and this one takes place even as Pakistani security forces take the fight to Islamic militants in the region. Jill Doherty, CNN, the State Department.
And there you got it, okay? Make up your own mind on what the news is and is not telling you. An informed general public is not what we have. The news editors in the Valley is who you get to thank for that one. And the reason why Radio Free Canada is coming on strong, coming up here Saturday. Make sure you're out here for that one. Subjects that we didn't have time to cover: GMOs, oil pipelines, the medical industry not using cancer cures that it can easily use, opacity in government, the fact that gays are getting slammed by our mayor. Can I continue with the list?
Well, I don't know. It could take the rest of the show to do that.
So we've got a lot of shows and a lot of information getting on there. Get on our Facebook group because we are going to start formally promoting Radio Free Canada now.
Yes, we must do that. And don't forget to get out and join us for Demand Democracy Day on Saturday, September 15th at 12 noon at Kerry Park.
Yes. Okay. So let's have a reason to smile before we finish up the show because we're just running into the end. And we would like to thank all of our supporters for coming out and making sure that the ball keeps going. I really do appreciate it from my heart. Absolutely. All those people who are backing us up, because you are the people that count. You are the people that are going to make change on this planet. Keep doing it. So let's smile. I need to run something that'll make me smile.
Help wanted. The TSA needs your help to protect America's national security. As a lightly trained TSA officer, you'll get a plastic badge. Oh yeah, you rock. But that's not all. No education needed. No IQ too low. Not even yours. And as a federal TSA officer, you get to harass everyone around you, just like you did in high school. Yo, check this out. You also get to feel some genitals. No, not your own. Other people's genitals. Plus, you're fully authorized by Janet Pat Napolitano to undress innocent travelers where there are no security cameras and no limits to your awesome power. Your work environment is always comfortably warm thanks to the ionizing radiation being constantly emitted by X-ray machines and naked body scanners. But don't worry, even if you do get cancer, we've got government health care for you for all the psychiatric drugs that turn you into a complete psychopathic criminal. That's even more awesomer. Hey, power-tripping perv, do you enjoy undressing little boys and girls like a Penn State football coach? Do you like to detain U.S. senators? Do you appreciate portable electronics that slide easily into your pocket? Have you ever wanted to see what's really hiding in Grandma's diapers? Well, now's your chance, pervert scum. Join the TSA and we'll give you a badge, a uniform, and an ego trip the size of the federal budget deficit. Plus, you'll get a paycheck denominated in fiat currency, Federal Reserve notes. Oh yeah. In the TSA, you'll be working alongside 65,000 other fine men and women and pervs who represent the security elite, the last line of desperate defense against terrorists that are hiding everywhere. We think they might even be hiding in your underwear. So turn off the Xbox and put down those glazed donuts and stop masturbating to internet porn. Experience real life porn with the naked body scanners only at the TSA. That's right. Get out of your parents' basement and join the elite. Your country needs your help to destroy the Bill of Rights and secure our freedom, one scrotum at a time. Apply now, you pathetic loser, at TSA.gov.
Now, that's one of those more amazing things that, it just sort of hits it right on the money. TSA, I will not allow my kids to be groped by these individuals, and we do not. My dad actually said, we're not flying anymore.
Well, they're rolling it into shopping malls. They're rolling it out to the highway. They're doing portable checkpoints on the highway. They're doing it Bus stations and train
bus
stations.
The Homeland Security stopped a bus, 3 buses in the United States. They got slammed huge for this because this is a total invasion of privacy. They picked up a bunch of people who had warrants for their arrest using transit. But everybody stood up and said something about it. Of course, except conservatives who believe that we shouldn't have rights. Fascism is a good thing. That's amazing. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's what we're standing against right here at Radio Free Canada. And that's pretty well it for the show today. I can't believe it.
Wow, didn't have time to cover all the subjects he wanted to, like Trapwire, the new surveillance system that's going on around the world.
Yes.
And other trappings of the security state and the loss of our freedoms that we are experiencing due to the war on terror. And they're fighting that because, they hate our freedoms.
So what we need you to do is go out and get informed. We are going to start talking about this, but we want you to get on truefoodfoundation.org. Find out about your cornflakes. We want you to get on LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We want you to find out about marijuana and the damage that all of these laws are doing. We do want you to realize that there's 1,500 homeless people in Kelowna who are not being fed, but they're attributing $2 million more to a local park. Okay? I mean, this is amazing, but the change can occur, and we can make it happen.
And they're beautifying Bernard Street, and while I'm screwing the businessmen on Bernard.
Yeah. Because it was needed for progress. You got an opinion, get a hold of me. My name is Darin Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
And make sure you get a hold of us. Radio Free Canada is our Facebook page. Darin's Place is the beginning of our YouTube channel. And you can get a hold of me at Darin's Desk, DARINSDESK at hotmail.com. We are at Box 20013, Kelowna, BC, V1Y9 Henry 2. And you can get a hold of us right here by sending us an email. We aren't major news and media. We did it. We're under time. Can you believe that?
Awesomer.
So thanks a lot for coming out and joining us. And remember, activism works. There is hope for the future. We can turn this train around. It is only conservatives and conservative-minded people that believe we're going to hell in a handbasket. The rest of us, we're capable of creating municipal sustainability. Okay.
That's
it.
Get out there, fight apathy, and stand up for democracy.
You know it. Okay. Have yourself a great time. We'll see you on Friday.
I'm old enough to say someone has taken my place when time